Welcome back to Hey Kentucky. We are now happy to be joined by one of the good friends of the show and Kentucky Sports Radio. It is our good friend Tom Hart, who's with us at his home. Tom, how are you?
I'm fantastic, man. I cannot tell you what a delight it is to be with you tonight.
Well, thank you very much. Now, you're with the SEC Network, ESPN. You've done a million Kentucky games in football and basketball this year. Let's start with football. They play the Cats in the Citrus Bowl against Penn State. No one is picking Kentucky. You did a ton of Kentucky games. Why do you think they have the disrespect so far?
I have no answer for that. Honestly, I think it's probably because they haven't gotten the exposure that, say, Penn State did. I mean, Penn State was playing on national television, it seemed like, every week, and they played really well. Even the games that they lost, it came down to the wire. But I don't know if you've watched this Kentucky team, whether you're a national writer or prognosticator. I don't know how you can pick against them with this caveat. You know, it seemed like they were leaking oil late in the season. They didn't finish as strong as they started, obviously. But that Florida win, you know, which I was happy to call down in Gainesville that ended the long streak, that was as good a win as a lot of teams have had this year, especially the year that Florida put together. But the bottom line to me is that Kentucky's got their stars playing in the game, and they have stars at every level. You've got them on the defensive line. You've got them at linebacker. You have a fantastic secondary. And Benny Snell, in his last go-around, I think is a fantastic story.
You go to every campus in the SEC at some point. Now, I asked this question to Laura Rutledge, and she had an interesting answer, but I want your take. With what you saw with Kentucky this year, the players, but also the program, the facilities, is Kentucky at a level that you think they can consistently maintain where they are over the next 5 to 10 years?
10 years is really hard to predict because it's very rare for a coaching staff to be at any place for 15. Okay, so if you're talking a decade out, the question is, what would the next coaching staff look like, and can they be as effective as this one? Because no one sticks around for 15. Next 5 years? Absolutely. And it starts with facilities, because facilities play directly into recruiting. And going into Georgia and going into Alabama and going into Auburn, I see the same quality of facilities in Lexington that I do at all of those places. And on signing day, whether it's the early one or the late one, that's what we're told kids relate to these days. That's the shiny stuff is what gets them in the door. Winning certainly helps. So all of that, I see no reason why Kentucky can't continue to be on the upswing.
Let's talk basketball. You were at the game Saturday against Utah. In 2 days, Kentucky's going to play North Carolina. It felt like to me Saturday was a good moving forward moment. They lost Quade, but they played well. It seemed they got some of their mojo back. Do you agree?
I agree, and I think it starts with John Calipari because he got his swagger back. You know, I was in practice Friday afternoon right after he met with the media, and he had this edge to him. You know, he had this edge. So everyone's doubting us, and everyone's asking me these silly questions, and they don't know how good we are, and they don't know what we believe inside this building. And John Calipari's at his best when he has an edge, whether it's facing another rival coach or trying to prove doubters wrong. But most importantly, it's Keldon Johnson blossoming into the superstar that I think he can be. I said this on the air. I think Reed Travis is the most valuable player of that Kentucky program right now because he's been so dependent. You can go to him 2 or 3 possessions in a row. But from an athletic standpoint, especially Saturday against a North Carolina team that loves to get up and down the floor, it's going to take Keldon Johnson both running the floor and hitting shots. And he hit his first 5 Saturdays, so why can't that continue?
Now, you've gotten a lot of Kentucky fans excited because you make little references now during the games to inside jokes from our radio show and our TV show and this whole group that we have, and fans seem to have really taken to you from it. Or they like you now in a way that they probably don't know other announcers. Was that intentional, and have you enjoyed doing it?
Well, first of all, it's really hard to get a connection to a fan base, the job that I do, because typically you just helicopter in for a weekend and you're back out. You don't spend much time around the fans. So it wasn't intentional at the beginning, but the feedback I got, especially from KSR listeners, was so great because it allowed me to make a connection with the fan base. And if you can drop a little breadcrumb here and there to get them to relate to it, honestly, it's something I do with my kids on a lot of broadcasts. I'll work in a word for them that only they know I'm going to say, and because I'm not at home, because I'm on the TV, they can relate to it. So it's fun, man. It's fun being part of a everybody wants to be part of Big Blue Nation, but it's fun being part of a club where you can relate to people and they get a kick out of it. I got to say, my favorite was making fun of you for not changing your oil, because that was one. Yeah. Kentucky was having a hard time guarding this great shooter for UNC Greensboro, and Jimmy Dykes said, "You got to go out there. You got to go guard him at the free throw line." I said, "Well, you don't have to. Just like you don't have to change your oil. I mean, if you don't want to make threes, you got to guard him. But if you don't care whether or not your engine seizes, you don't have to change your oil."
Yeah, for people who don't know, I didn't do that and my car broke down. But thanks a lot, Tom. I appreciate it. But seriously, you've been a great friend to us, a great friend of the show and Big Blue Nation. Thank you very much for your time.
I appreciate it. I always love when I come to Lexington and cover the Cats. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll see you at KS Bar.